In human design, we have 12 profiles. And there's always the question, why 12 profiles? The answer is easy in a way. It's due to the fact that we have 88-degree calculation. So that means we have the calculation of the birth time, and we do have the calculation of 88 degrees before the birth time. And when you look at the Sun-Earth and the lines of the Sun-Earth, these are the lines that make up the profile. So this genetic continuity that is there within the 12 profiles is because of this 88 degrees. If you would have 90 degrees, there would be no life at all. It would be only one profile, two profiles, three profiles. But then with this shift of 2 degrees, that makes life happening. So when you look at the profiles, you can really see a spiraling continuity. For instance, everything starts in a hexagram with a 1-3 profile, led by a 1-4, then a 2-4, 2-5, and so forth and so on. And when you look at this, it's so interesting. 1-3, 1-4 have the 1 in common, the personality. When you go then from the 1-4 to the 2-4, it's the design that is in common, the 4th line. So that means always 2 profiles sharing either the personality side or the design side. And this makes up this spiraling. And when it comes to life, and life itself, it's so interesting because we have a spiraling thing in us that is called the DNA. It's a double helix. And the double helix has 2 complementary strands that are twisted against each other. And they're anti-parallel. And this twisting against each other gives this typical structure that is called the structure B form of the DNA itself, which was evolved by Watson and Crick in 1953. So when you look at this DNA and the spiraling of the DNA, what we can see here is that there are 2 kinds of what is called grooves. One is called the major groove. One is called the minor groove. And we can really correlate these major and minor grooves to the profiles itself. So when you look at the 12 profiles, 6 of them are so-called foundation profiles. 6 of them are called changing profiles, which actually function as a bridge from one foundation profile to the next. And if you set this into analogy to the DNA, you can really see that the major grooves are the foundation profiles. The minor grooves are changing profiles. And there's always a foundation, a foundation, a changing profile. And in addition to that, you can see it in the DNA, there's always the major groove followed by the minor groove, followed by the major groove. And here you can see these 2 kinds of continuity set in analogy. And that is so wonderful. When we look at profile, we look at life itself. And in a way, we look at the genetic code and the DNA itself.
Hello, I'm Martin Grassinger. Today, we will listen to the Splenic Center. The Splenic Center. It's always funny to watch that every single center within this body graph has its own specific relationship to a specific hormonal gland, to a specific organ. For every hormonal gland is an organ. The only center without such an relationship is the splenic center. Some people even, they say it's the spleen when they take a look at the body graph, this awareness center on the left side. So you have an open spleen or your spleen is defined. But I'm sorry, this isn't the spleen. Most of the functions within the splenic center isn't even about the immune system. When I started to work with design in 1992, we didn't know so much about the details we know today. So I was trained basically first to take a look at the centers. And in my practice, working as a therapist, I was confronted with people with an what we would call open spleen, just with an undefined splenic center, it would be correct. And they never get sick, even as a child. And other people with a very strong defined splenic center, they were sick every time. So from my experience, it wasn't just about the immune system. It was something more and something behind. And then immediately I recognized that this center isn't a source of something, isn't a motor. It has no capacity to drive something, to create something, to be a source of something. It has the capacity to be aware or not, to check things in the very moment. And of course, to store information for the capacity to check things if they are correct, if they are right in terms of the body, if they are healthy. Because everything that's right and correct in terms of what's going on in the inner world as well as in the outer world, if it's in resonance and it's okay, then it is healthy. So it's about checking the resistance, if there is any resistance in the inner world or the outer world. From my perspective, it's just checking if the atmosphere is clear or if the atmosphere is dirty. Dirty as a continuum in a specific way. If it gets chronic, it could be something that makes you sick. When you take a look at the design of forms, you can see that this is the one and only awareness center which connects all the various life forms. All the life forms, they are just connected in the now, in the atmosphere, inside of themselves, as well as in the atmosphere which is around them, in the environment. And it could be something that is healthy to the body, to the form, no matter if it's a plant or a bird or an insect or whatsoever. So it could be healthy if it's clear, if it's clean, if it's good, if there's no resistance in this very moment. And it could make you sick, or it could make this specific life form sick if it's not correct, if it's not okay, if it's not clean, if there is too much resistance for the energy to flow in the now. And in evolution, it's the oldest place for consciousness. The single cell with the two centers has the capacity to put the magnetic monopole in the G and to put the design crystal in the sacral center. This is the prerequisite for life taking place, that these two parts are in different centers, but there's no personality crystal. It starts with the plants, it starts with the creation of the splenic center, of the capacity of the awareness in the now, that there was a place where the personality crystal has a home. And there it starts with consciousness. This is a physical consciousness of the body. And evolution went on with creating different forms and in the end creating human beings as well as we are. And we still have this old ancient capacity of physical body awareness in the now. Everything is clean, everything is fine in the inner world as well as in the outer world. If this is the fact, it's healthy. If it's not, and it stays chronic in this way, it will probably make us sick. Of course, there are so many layers within the splenic center we can't touch in this short contribution now. But just from this overview perspective, you can see that this center, the splenic center, has a very, very wide horizon. And we just touched the starting point.
Lynda, there's so many people who get involved in human design and love it, and there are already professionals out there in the world doing a variety of things to help support people. I get asked a lot of times, what are the available professional programs a person has as a choice when they get involved with human design?
Yeah, that's a good question. When you first come to human design, sometimes people get confused, where do I start? What do I do? So I'd like to just kind of outline, for the newcomer, what they can, when they come to human design, the steps to take. And the first thing to do is go to the Newcomer Center at jovianarchive.com. Go there, get your chart, have an overview reading by one of the professionals listed in there, so you get your feet wet. And then if you go to the part on the website called the Jam Player, there's a lot of free recordings in there that you can begin to listen to. There's a lot of information. And after you've sort of absorbed some of that, then you might want to think about actually getting what's called a foundational reading. A foundation reading is something that should take about an hour and go into a lot of depth about your design. Now, once you've had time to digest that and learn about your strategy and authority, you enter into the experiment of your strategy and authority. Then when you feel it's the correct time for you, take the Living Your Design class, and then you'll learn there more about the not self and strategy and authority, and you'll be working with a teacher and a group of other people that are newcomers as well. And once you finish that course, then you can step back and take a breath and say, okay, what is it that I would like to do? What would I like to explore? And if you want to know more about human design, I mean, after you take the Living Your Design, you can just leave. Go practice your strategy and authority and transform your life. You don't have to take any more classes at all. But a lot of people are curious at that stage. And so we have a class called ABC, Rave Cartography. Those two classes give you the building blocks for understanding the various components that go into the body graph and understanding a chart. And then a lot of times when people finish ABC and Rave Cartography, they get very curious about, well, what if I wanted to become an analyst? Or what if I wanted to look into the professional side of human design for myself as a career? Then, at that stage, after Rave Cartography, you could consider becoming a Living Your Design guide for others. You have enough education at that stage that you could do that. That's where you would give workshops to people, newcomers that, just like you, that are getting involved in human design and need some support in understanding the not self and strategy and authority. So you can become a Living Your Design guide. And then if you want to become an analyst, then there's the Professional Analyst Program, Family Practitioner Program, the BG5, which is the business side of things. So there's different avenues that you can go in if becoming a professional is what you want to do. If you're not interested in becoming a professional, it doesn't matter. Just live your design and go down the path of just transforming your life. It's just something that you live each day. You get up each morning and you just begin to practice your strategy and authority. If you're a generator, respond. If you're a projector, wait to be invited. If you're a reflector, then wait the cycle of the moon before you make a decision. If you're a manifestor, inform. And as you begin to practice your strategy and your authority, then watch your life change. So there's you don't have to take classes, but there's a nice path set up for you should you want to learn more about yourself or your family, and get involved in a community that speaks the same language. So thanks.